We'd like to thank our sponsor, Osea, the pioneers of clean, clinically proven skincare from the sea that delivers visible results while respecting the planet. Osea skincare harnesses the benefits of seaweed, a nutrient-rich oceanic plant packed with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. And from their best-selling Undaria algae body oil and hyaluronic sea serum, every Osea product is formulated to nourish your skin and promote a radiant, healthy complexion. And customers have shared that it makes their skin glow all the time. Their products are vegan, cruelty-free, and free of harmful ingredients like parabens, synthetic fragrances, and sulfates. And as a climate-neutral certified and ocean-positive verified brand, they're dedicated to protecting our oceans and preserving the beauty of our planet for generations to come. You can glow from the inside out with clean vegan skin and body care from Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code GATEWAYS at oseamalibu.com, and you'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. You can head to oseamalibu.com and use the code GATEWAYS for 10% off. Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with Derek Rydall, the #1 best-selling author of Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, which reveals the revolutionary principle, the Law of Emergence, showing people how to tap into the pattern of perfection in any area of their life and create the right conditions for it to unfold. I am so excited to welcome him to the show. He's also launching a new book this year called Whole New Human, about how we must evolve to survive and thrive in the AI age. So welcome to the show, Derek.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm excited.
Likewise. So, Derek, just to kick it off, in the book Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, you talk about this idea of emergence as a path to transformation of self. You know, how can we understand what we can do with this term and how we can change our lives?
Yeah, it's many years ago, like so many people, I was on a self-improvement journey. And I was, trying to fix, change, heal, improve, attract, and therapy. And no matter how much self-improvement I did, the only thing I seemed to improve was my understanding of how screwed up my life was and how screwed up I was. And so I could describe all the things that happened in my life that I think messed me up. But it didn't actually lead to more joy, more expansion, more peace. In fact, it eventually drove me. I was so frustrated. It drove me to a place of drinking and becoming addicted to drugs, and then almost dying of an overdose. And I remember lying in the hospital in the emergency room, and the doctor saying, "You're lucky to be alive." And I was like, I don't feel so lucky. How did all my efforts to improve my life get me here? And I redoubled my efforts, thinking I just need to think smarter, work harder, attract better. And things got better for a moment. And then I was an actor at the time, and I ended up doing a movie, and I was in Jamaica, and everything started falling apart again. And I remember one day praying to get lost from everything. And I went diving in a coral reef, and my prayer was answered. I got lost very badly in this reef underwater. And I got stuck in what was like an underwater booby trap tomb out of an Indiana Jones movie, surrounded by fire coral, spiked coral everywhere beneath me. Nobody knew I was out there. And I couldn't swim down to get out. I couldn't lift my head out of the water to see where I was, or I would be skewered on these spikes. And basically, I had a real come to Jesus moment where I knew I wasn't going to get out of there, or at least it seemed so. And there was a moment where I was exhausted. Nobody was coming to save me. It was getting dark. And all that was left in me was a moment of true surrender. Not bargaining. I tried that. God, if you get me out of this, I promise I'll go to church on Sunday. That didn't work. There was no, let's make a deal today. And there was a moment of true surrender, of a true letting go. And in that moment, there was a flash of light. And in a millisecond, I saw this. I saw that this Derek that I've been trying to fix, change, heal, improve was a fiction, was an amalgamation of parental fantasy, societal conditioning, peer pressure, and that nothing I ever would do to him or about him would ever make him enough. But I also saw that simultaneously there was another me that was never hurt or damaged or diminished by life. So he didn't need to be fixed. And he was already whole. And so he could not be improved. Actually, self-improvement was an oxymoron. Now, I didn't have all those words. It was a flash. But in the next moment, I was standing outside of the water on top of the one place of coral without fire coral that I could stand on. Somehow I got there, and I was looking down into this coral reef, which was a maze. And I could see the exit was just inches behind me the whole time. I just couldn't see it from where I was. And it was a metaphor. I'd been swimming through this maze most of my life, following all these brightly colored things, gasping for air. And I was drowning. And in that moment of actually drowning, basically, and surrendering, something broke in me. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. And I caught a glimpse of something deeper and more intrinsic to my nature and what I eventually understood to all of our natures. And I ended up pulling out of society, trying to become a monk. That's a long story. Didn't go so well. After a couple weeks of fasting and silence, I freaked out and stole food out of the monk's kitchen in the middle of the night and got very sick and had an out-of-body experience and pretty much ran screaming out of the monastery. But I cloistered myself in my apartment after that, and I had a deeper understanding of what happened. And basically what I saw was that just like in every seed in creation, there is a pattern. There's a perfect pattern. The oak is already in the acorn. The apple tree is in the apple seed. And so is apple pie and apple turnover and orchards of apples. It's all within the pattern, within the seed. And everything comes from a seed. And that this pattern in the seed, the acorn doesn't improve itself into an oak tree. The acorn is not an inadequate oak tree. The acorn does not attract an oak tree. The acorn does not achieve an oak tree. What happens is when the acorn surrenders to the soil and the right conditions are created, the conditions that are congruent with that pattern, in other words, alignment, then the oak of that seed naturally emerges. And that this is true everywhere in nature. And in fact, it's even the fundamental truth of evolution. And that's a whole nother conversation. But evolution is not a process of blindly, accidentally trying to make something better. Evolution is the process by which nature creates the next best condition for the seed of creation to emerge. And that's what happens within us as well. So as I understood this, instead of trying to fix, change, heal, and achieve anything, I began to ask, well, what is that seed of potential and of purpose planted in the soil of my soul? And what are the conditions it needs to flower and to flourish? Put another way, right where we are right now, your favorite music is playing. But if you don't have a radio and you don't tune it into the right frequency, that music might as well not exist. But when you tune it into that frequency, that station becomes manifest. Where was it before? It was right here. So you have to come into alignment with that frequency, and then you have a manifestation, right? The station becomes manifest. The music becomes audible. That which is in potential in the quantum field becomes actual. The superposition of infinite potential is collapsed into an atom of possibility. But it's all about congruence and integrity and alignment. It's not about adding or fixing or improving. You cannot improve upon what life has already done. You can simply come into alignment with it, and then it begins to emerge. And that's hence the principle of the law of emergence.
So, this concept of coming into alignment, how would you suggest for folks who are listening, who might have one area of their life that they feel out of alignment with, but maybe don't have, I don't know, the willpower, the resolve to take that step? I mean, what are sort of the steps that one needs to take to kind of move through these moments of getting into emergence?
Yeah, well, the first step that we need to take is we need to know what is that seed within us, or if it's a business or a book or a project, we have to know first and foremost what is it that is trying to emerge. And put another way, if you don't know where you're going, every road will get you lost. Put another way, above the Oracle of Delphi, it says, know thyself. That's the first commandment, know thyself. And the second commandment is, to thine own self be true. Those are the basic two principles, wax on, wax off, for personal development and personal evolution. Know yourself, be yourself. Know yourself, be yourself. That is the most fundamental, because you can't be yourself if you don't know yourself. And you can't really know yourself unless you make it the number one priority of your life. And that's hard. But as it says in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish. So right now, and just in general, we have a world in a lot of areas and ways in which the problem isn't that we need a better policy or even a better technology. What we need is a better vision. And we need more people who are tapped into that vision, first within themselves. And so that's step one, right? And there's a lot of temptations, right? We've been conditioned since we were young to put our attention outside of us and to try to be what mommy or daddy or teacher wanted us to be, or priest or minister or whatever. We've been conditioned to believe I can't really be who and what I really am. I have to negotiate. I have to, go a little further to the left or the right than just to really be who I am in my center, because I won't get loved. I will get rejected. I'll be in danger. I'll be attacked, et cetera, et cetera. And we have to learn and make it a priority to come back to ourselves and not make a decision merely because this is what's safe or expedient, or this is what will make money, or this is what will not lose money, or this is what will make my mom, dad, partner, kids, family, church happy, whatever. But because this is the truth. What's the truth about me? What is that within me which is aching to come out? That's where we have to start.
So it's so beautiful, Derek. I think you say that one of the most important things is to spend time with yourself and know yourself, so that you can create the visions and be in alignment and move towards that goal. What about for really busy individuals? I'm thinking moms with newborns. Do you still feel like there's space for folks to know themselves with incredibly busy schedules, or do you still feel like that should be a priority?
Yeah, so here's the thing. There's no doubt that the lives we've created, many of us, especially in the West, we've created lives that are extremely busy, and they're lives that require day planners and schedulers and apps and apps within apps upon apps and schedule. And I have a joke. Nature never needs a day planner, right? The oak tree never goes, God, I'd really love to do some more oaking this week, but I'm just too darn busy, right? The squirrel never goes, I know I got a lot of nuts to gather up and plant, and I'm just too busy being a bird. And so it's hard. We've gotten far away from ourselves, and not just away from ourselves. We become fragmented, and so we need day planners and schedules, because we are trying to be a lot of things we're not, and we're trying to manage a lot of things that aren't really ours, and we're trying to handle a lot of other people's stuff that's not ours to handle, and it's scary and it's difficult, and we I'm not saying jump out of a plane without a parachute. But it doesn't matter how many reasons we have for why we say, I can't. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the money. I don't have the support. It really doesn't matter. what excuses that you have. It's like saying, I'm driving down the highway and there's a big wall in front of me, but I just don't have time to stop. So even if you're a busy mother, obviously taking care of your child is going to be a number one priority, and hopefully so is taking care of yourself. And that's a difficult one for busy mothers and also for people high in feminine trait, male or female. They tend to sacrifice and step over themselves for others. So you have to make yourself a priority. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your child. And you might have to also develop a little more selfishness and a little more courage to create the kind of boundaries that create space. Just like if you have new, fresh grass, you put a boundary around it so people don't trample over it. And if you're a new mom or have a new child or have a new business or something that requires a degree of selfishness and a degree of space, you have to create the boundaries that protect it and let people know, invite people in to be your allies, and invite people out that aren't willing to be your allies. And again, it's not easy, but it's necessary if you're going to not only be healthy and happy. And as a mother in that example, do you want to raise a child that you've modeled to them that there's not enough time to be yourself and take care of yourself and live the life that you're truly made for? I don't think so. So if you're going to model a life, if you want your child to grow up empowered and have agency and sovereignty and well-being, that starts as soon as possible. So that gives you even a deeper reason why. And then you have to make the time. It doesn't make itself. You have to, again, like I said, say no to some things and say yes, especially the things that it's hard to say no to, and say yes to some of the things that it's hard to say yes to. I mean, the bottom line is God will not do its work through cowards, as Emerson said. We have to have a backbone, not a wishbone. We have to have the courage. Courage is the word. It takes a lot of courage to prioritize knowing ourselves and being ourselves in a world that is bombarding us 24/7 with all the reasons why we can't or shouldn't. Or why we should be what everybody else thinks we should be. It takes a warrior, and it takes a hero and a heroine. And that is really what the hero's journey and the heroine's journey is about. That courage, to go on the quest, to know ourselves and to be ourselves. And if we do, we don't just change our lives, we change the world.
Mm. I love that so much. And I've never heard that quote, God doesn't do his work through cowards by Emerson. That's so good.
There's another one. We have to remove our bloated sense of nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits.
Oh, it's so good. That's amazing. I got to write those down. So, Derek, I want to talk about abundance because you spent a lot of time writing about it, speaking about it. And that was actually the first book that I read of yours, The Abundance Project. And I'd love, it's a topic that I think everyone asks about, is confused about. So what does abundance mean to you? And how can people in our audience, create abundance in their own life?
Yeah. So, as you get to know the whole thing about emergence is which is true of all ancient mystical teachings, they are pretty much 180 degrees opposite of what is traditional knowledge and education, right? The traditional knowledge base is that, we show up here empty and then we have to fill ourselves up with everything we need, right? We have to go to a school because we don't know anything, and the school is going to fill our heads with a bunch of stuff we need to know, which ironically is exactly the opposite of what the word education means. It comes from educare, which means to educe, to draw out of. So the real purpose of education is to draw out of one what is already in them. So we've completely turned that around backwards. And the same thing with abundance. The word human comes from Sanskrit, a Sanskrit term, I think MN, that means the dispenser of divine gifts. And so what we really are is not an empty shell or a cutoff separate thing that has to attract and achieve and acquire and draw everything to us. What we really are is an instrument of life, or a portal into heaven, or whatever term you want to use. We are an opening through our consciousness. The whole quantum field is available. And we are not here to get. We are here to, again, as the poet Robert Browning says, to open out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape. And as the Gospel of Thomas says, if we bring forth what is within us, what we bring forth will save us. But if we do not bring forth what is within us, what we do not bring forth will destroy us. So again, in all of these things, the message is the secret to a successful and abundant life is not about going out and getting. It's about going within and letting, opening out a way to circulate, to shine, to share. That if you want to have more of anything come into your life, you have to find a way to let more life come out of you. That's the secret. You are a divine power plant, and you have to generate and radiate and circulate. So in my work on abundance, I teach the principle of abundance is all about the law of circulation. Wherever there's more circulation, there's more life, there's more green, there's more good. And that's any system, whether it's natural, biological, mental, creative, financial. In the Great Depression, we didn't have a lack of wealth on the planet. We didn't have a lack of food. In fact, they were taking train trucks full of food down to the ocean and burning them and dumping them. We had a lack of circulation. People got scared. People started hoarding. People stopped circulating. Stagnation set in, and the financial markets became a swamp. Same thing happens in nature. If there's no inlet or outlet, it becomes a dry riverbed or a swamp. And that same thing happens within us. Wherever we stop the cycle of circulation, it stagnates. And the cycle of circulation has three parts. You have to receive, you have to have first, rather. You have to give, and you have to receive. So you cannot give what you don't have. And you cannot keep what you don't give. And you cannot sustain what you won't receive. It's an in-breath, out-breath, in-breath. And what happens is most people, they're either giving, and it's not okay to receive, and oh no, it's okay, I'm fine. Or they're not selfish enough, so they don't have enough, they don't take care and fill themselves up enough. They're just giving. And that's like, try breathing out all day, watch how long you live. Or they're just taking, breathing in. And then they're hoarding it, holding on to that breath, and then you die. So you have to have it, you have to give it, and you have to receive it. And when people understand that cycle, you can begin to identify any area where you seem to be lacking, and you can start to diagnose what part of the cycle am I missing, right? Like I'm in a relationship and I don't feel loved, or I don't feel validated, or I don't feel respected, whether it's my boss, my colleagues, the world, or my husband or wife. And usually what we do is, well, they need to love me more, validate me more. And, I'll do better in my job when I get more credit or more money, or I'll give more love and attention to my partner when they give me more love and attention. So what's just happened? You've just created a swamp. And it doesn't matter what your reasons are. Well, I'm justified in my resentment. Okay, you can be justified all the way to a broken heart and physical problems and becoming in debt and broke. There's no justification. So you have to diagnose it properly. Or what they do is they wait. Well, I'll give more when I have more to give. I'll invest more when I have more to invest. I'll create more when I have more time. And so there's either I'm going to hold on to mine because I'm going to give as good as I'm going to get. It's a quid pro quo. Or I'm going to wait until I have whatever I think I need to give, right? So, or like I said, I'm just going to give and give and give and give and give, hoping at some point somebody will give back. None of those scenarios work. So for example, if there's a thing where we're waiting or we're resentful because we're not getting, usually the first place we have to start is giving it to ourselves. If I loved, valued, and respected myself, and I felt loved, valued, and respected, how would I treat me today? How would I show up for me today? And then how would I show up here, there, or wherever today? If I loved me, if I respected me, if I validated me, what would I do for me? How would I show up for me? And that begins to fill you up. And then, even if it's just a little, you ask, what do I have to give in this situation? If I could give a little more love, respect, validation, appreciation to my husband, my wife, my boss, whoever. And then you just start giving a little. And then you fill yourself up a little. And then you give a little. And then you start looking for, where is love, validation, and appreciation actually already coming at me? But I'm blind to it, or I'm ignoring it, or I'm deflecting it. And then you notice that person opens the door for you and smiles at you. Like, oh my God, that happens every day. I didn't even notice it. There's a little love. There's a little validation. That person says, thank you. That person says, wow, you look amazing. Oh my God, there's some more. And little by little, you start to open up the spigot. You start to get those dry, cobwebby wheels of your divine power plant chugging along again. And there's new inspiration, and there's new ideas, and there's new guidance. And now there's flow again. And interestingly enough, the word currency comes from the root current, as in flow. The word affluence, affluent, as in to be wealthy, comes from a word that means to flow. So it's all about the flow. We got to just find a way. And it doesn't mean let's just be in the flow. We have to master the generation of the flow until we build the habit where we are giving and receiving and filling and giving and receiving and filling until it's just like breathing.
It's interesting. So I love these analogies that you're providing, because it really kind of sets the tone of how the you said, like, the current of energy, and we can apply that, right, to the way nature works. What about
And to anything, to any quality, you want more love in your life, start loving more. Love yourself more, love your pet more, love your tree more, love your neighbor more, love your enemy more, and watch what starts to happen. You want a companionship in your life? Start being more of a companion to yourself, to your dog, to your plant, to the neighbor, et cetera, et cetera. We hold all of it. The whole of infinity is locked up within our heart and consciousness. And we're looking out at the world, waiting for it to bring it to us, or we're out there trying to get it. And that creates all the resistance to it.
Yes, I love that so much. So want to dig into this Abundance Project handbook that you created. What are maybe one or two of your favorite exercises from the books that people can maybe start to do today in real time to lock in some of these benefits?
Yeah, I go through a framework there called the 7 gifts that give you everything, also known as the 7 abundance activators or the 7 wealth activators. And I won't go through all of them, but the 7 gifts are basically, let me see if I can remember them: giving out, which is your time, talent, and treasure; giving away, which is all the stuff you don't really need, stored energy and all the stuff in your house, your garage, your car, just starting to get rid of that. So giving out, giving away, giving up. Giving up is letting go of all of those internal furniture and baggage that you're holding on to, like those complaints you love to complain about, those gossips. Those are all patterns of energy that you're circulating, that you're keeping in circulation. And so you have to discover those each, one at a time, whatever, and start giving those up. Giving in, which is about surrendering. There's something trying to emerge in you. There's more love, more creativity, and it could be edgy, it could be scary, but you're holding on to something safe and secure, and you have to give in to what's trying to emerge. So giving out, giving up, giving in, giving to yourself, which I already talked about, finding out where, whatever you want, if you already had it, how would you treat yourself? If you loved yourself, valued, respected, etc. Giving to yourself. This is especially important for spiritually centered, heart-centered, individuals. Giving thanks. So that's, not just gratitude in general, but understanding that gratitude is the frequency of having. Gratitude is the evidence you've already been given the gift. And you start off being grateful for something. Find one thing you can be grateful for. Then you eventually learn to be grateful for everything. And then you eventually learn to be grateful for nothing. And so just developing that as a practice. And then forgiveness. I think I'm missing one in there, but that's enough. Forgiveness, it's literally in the word, to be forgiving versus forgetting or fortaking. And wherever there's debt in somebody's life, there is a story of unforgiveness. So if you have debt and you're not creating enough abundance, start looking around for where you're holding people in debt, or where you're holding yourself in debt, where you believe it's like I owe you or you owe me. If you have a bunch of IOUs, you have a lot of debt. So you want to begin to daily practice letting yourself off the hook and letting others off the hook, and then daily filling yourself up. And then that's the giving to yourself. And then the giving away is a really fun one that anybody can do. And it's actually incredibly powerful. I remember my wife, her mom couldn't sell her house in Montreal for a long time. They had like 30-some people look at the house. Nobody bought it. And then Galit went with her and helped her clean out their entire attic. And it was full of stuff that's charged with emotion and energy. The next day, they had the offer on the house and it sold. And so, because all of the stuff you're holding on to physically in your desk, in your closet, in your car, in your office, that's not just stuff, that's energy. And especially the stuff you're holding on to that you don't want to let go of, that you're accumulating, it's stuck emotion and it's an old story. And as you start to get rid of it, give it away, sell it, throw it away, you aren't just moving things out, you are creating a vacuum. And the universe abhors a vacuum. It will always fill it with what's new and what's next. So whether you're emptying out the closet of your mind and the trunk of your soul, or you're emptying out the actual garage or closet, first of all, be aware there'll be a lot of emotion and energy there, and you will be potentially shocked. And I've done this for years with people, so I know how powerful, seemingly simple, but powerful it can be. Those are just a few ideas.
Wow. So cool. I'm like, I want to go clean out my my storage right now.
There's a reason why we have the term spring cleaning.
Yeah.
It's letting go and creating space, all the detritus of our life, so that the field is ready and ripe and fertile for new blossoming, for new growth. That's why Jesus said you have to die daily and be reborn again. It's the same idea. In fact, I was just talking to somebody recently, we're not old merely because because biologically we have to get old. What ages us the most is our accumulated story, and all the files on our hard drive that have not been defragged. Like, there's a reason kids are young and healthy and full of energy, and adults are old and sick and uninspired. It's because kids have only questions and adults have only answers. And so what happens is our accumulation of what we think we know and what we think we have and what we have to have and who we are, that accumulation of identity and certainty becomes rigidity. It starts to stop the flow. We step out of the quest you're on, the question, and we end up in stagnation. And so, you want to get younger, you want to have more energy, you want to have new ideas, you want to be inspired, you want to create new possibilities. Just start letting go of stuff. Enlightenment is not about accumulating anything. It's about letting it all go.
I love that. So powerful. Derek, I want to talk about this book. You wrote many books, but the one book called The Script, and you share that we're all living out this pre-written script, and you just kind of spoke about identity, these accumulated thoughts and emotions, and that we all, as we get older, just have answers and not questions. How can individuals rewrite their own scripts, to really create the life that they want?
I don't think I wrote that book. I did actually write some books on screenwriting. You might be referring back to my days as a screenwriter when I wrote There's No Business Like Soul Business. And um, I could have written a better movie than that. But I do talk a lot
Oh,
about that metaphor. Um, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? We do need to constantly be updating. It's funny how often we update our software on our computers, but how rarely we update our software in our minds, in our hearts. And we basically come into this world, whether you believe it or not. Perhaps we bring previous incarnations, previous maps, previous things to work on, and I think that's very possible. But we have experiences, and we create a map of reality and an identity early on. And then what happens is we just go through the rest of our life living within that matrix and rarely questioning it, trying to improve our lot within the matrix, trying to improve the dream, but rarely questioning what we think is unquestionable. And that's what I mean about we have to live in the question, because everything we think is so is the boundary of our map of reality, even the good things. Everything we think is absolutely true. This is absolutely true. That right there is a line in the sand. Either I can't do this, this happened to me, this is what it means, this is what I have to do, all of those are lines we're drawing of our map, and basically a story. And then what happens is we live the character within those parameters. And then we might do affirmations or meditations or different kinds of things to transform and heal. But if we haven't changed the story, we're just improving again. We're improving ourselves within the dream. If our dream is we're out in the middle of the ocean drowning, we may just learn to be better swimmers or learn how to build a better boat. But what about just waking up from the dream and telling a different story? And affirmations are great. And they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. A new story is worth 1,000 pictures. So if you actually, instead of working on all the little details, you are able to unlock the story that you've been living. And believe me, the clues are everywhere. I teach people, I go through a process called the life code, where I show people how to unlock the story of their life. And also for people that are leaders and thought leaders, teachers, artists, etc., that the workshop you've been living is the one you're meant to be giving, because it's all connected. But yeah, there's a story we're living in. And the more you can see it and be the actor and the author and maybe the co-director, but no longer stuck as the character, now you have leverage. Now you have the beginning of metacognition, where you can think about what you're thinking about. And now you can decide to tell a new story. And we have to tell a new story. Stories are the equipment for living. Our whole society is literally living out a collective dream or a collective story. Myths are the past dreams of the collective consciousness. And we need a new myth, and we need a new story. And we don't have to wait for the world. If we go on our own hero or heroine's journey, we absolutely can create a new story. And then eventually, it changes the world again. But at the very least, it changes our world. So yeah, I'm all about slowing down and beginning to be more interested in not so much changing the world, but noticing the meaning I assign to whatever triggers me. I call it being trigger happy. So when I get triggered, instead of the first thing being change that person, change the world, go out, make a difference, whatever, it's what is that story I'm telling about that thing, that person, that partner, my family, the government, whatever, because the whole world is really a Rorschach test. It's one big ink blot. And one person sees fire breathing dragons and one person sees cotton candy. And it has nothing to do with out there. It has everything to do with what's in here, inside of you. So that's the first step in kind of all the way back to what we're talking about, know yourself. You're not really in the world. The whole world is in you, like a dream. And if you can slow it down enough and be interested enough, you can start reading the world like a symbolic map and reading, it's a symbolic treasure map back to you. And it'll tell you, oh, I have a story about no matter what I do, it's never going to work out. Oh, I have a story about nobody ever appreciates me. Nobody ever gets me. No matter what I do, they're going to, everybody takes credit. I can't trust the world. I'm not safe. That's what's going on. Not, why doesn't Bob ever do the job right? Or why is Susie always getting on my case? Or why doesn't Bill give me a raise? Or why in the hell do we have these crazy people in politics? If you just peel down the layers, you'll see it's an entire program running in you. And then you can change it. And then you become the change you want to see in the world. And you become a light. And then the universe goes, we got another one. And the universe gives you a bigger platform because now you're not as influenced by the world. You can now be an influential person in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I'm just, kind of integrating it. And I think, the idea that we have so much agency and power over our reality is something that I think I would say most people are catching up on that fact, right? Like that there's so much in our inner world that is projected out in the external world. And so once we can, rather than changing the mirror, we want to come back to self and
Exactly.
have inquiry in self. Yeah. I want to talk about your new
And that
book.
doesn't mean, I want to just make a quick caveat
Oh, yeah.
because, some people might going, well, they can't see me right now, but they might be going, well, that's easy for you, white, cisgender man. You've had all the whatever, you've had it easy or whatever. I really haven't, believe it or not. Lots of tragedy and pain and suffering. But so I'm not saying there's not things going on in the world that are unfair, that are unjust, that are systemic. And then it's important that we do keep trying to make the mirror as clean as possible. But the fundamental spiritual or true, like the truth principle of the ages is that it really is, nothing can actually happen to us except through the activity of our own consciousness. And that's a difficult principle, but if you can just forget that it has to do with anybody else and take that on, it's the most empowering one. It's why Dr. King could do what Dr. King did. It's why Gandhi could do what Gandhi did. It's why Mandela, being in prison for 27 years, was freer than any of the prison guards and actually left that prison and became president and ended apartheid. He didn't end apartheid after he left prison. He ended apartheid while he was in prison because he ended apartheid inside of himself. And so it doesn't matter who you are, your race, gender, color, sexual orientation, political persuasion, what country or culture you come from, that power is in you. And it does not mean we shouldn't still keep doing everything we can to create a world that works for the highest good of all. With whatever power, agency, and resources we have to put to use to help people work their way up Maslow's hierarchy of needs so that they actually have the food and the energy and the time and the well-being and the health and the safety so that they can start putting more and more attention on waking up to who they are. So both of those can coexist. But I just think it's important. It's not a spiritual bypass. I'm not being airy-fairy. It's airy-gritty. It's both and.
Yes. I love that. Derek, I find that to be incredibly important for, especially right now, where there's so much out there that is trying to influence and kind of colonize our lives. So
exactly.
Right. Okay. So let's dive into the conversation around AI and consciousness. I know that you're working on a book on artificial intelligence and consciousness. So, especially where we're at right now as a society, it seems like AI is moving in quantum leaps, and technology is
Yes.
kind of outpacing human, I would say, consciousness in some ways. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
outpacing consciousness, it's outpacing intelligence. It's outpacing our own ego intelligence. So
Yes.
what is happening from your perspective?
Well, the first thing is that every technology that appears outside is a prosthetic or a projection or a relative expression of an internal technology. For example, we don't have eyes. We don't see because we have eyes. We have eyes because seeing is a quality and capacity of consciousness. And so in this dimension, we evolved to create these physical objects called eyes. And even the eyes don't actually see. It's a whole other story. They receive frequencies of light. But that's a technology of consciousness. Seeing, hearing are technologies of consciousness. They manifest outside, and then we create greater and greater extensions of those. And then spiritually or metaphysically, there's a principle of omnipresence, which is that in the quantum field, whatever that atom is, it's not here or there, it's everywhere. Or you could say God consciousness is everywhere, the mind of God, whether you're speaking spiritually, religiously, or quantum physics. Whatever is the nature of the foundation or ground of being it's everywhere. So in consciousness, our true nature is we are omnipresent. As that unfolds in time and space, we keep manifesting outer technologies that represent our inner technology. So now we're talking here, and all around the world, people are hearing. So, in a way, we are omnipresent right now. That is a state of consciousness that is manifesting at the level of technology, outer technology, and human and material form. The same thing with omnipotence, all power. All power is within us. But as it unfolds outside, it creates better and better expressions of power. And on and on and on. Every technology is already in consciousness. It's already our capacity, our ability to communicate without words, to communicate across distances, ESP, etc. It out pictures as a telephone, and then internet, and then Zoom, and then podcasts, and it's the same thing. So what's happening is our spiritual or true nature as infinite, eternal, omnipotent, omniscient beings of consciousness is outpicturing in all these different dimensions as externalized prosthetics and technologies. Now, that's all cool. That's wonderful. That's fun. AI, artificial intelligence, the original AI is us. If that's the ancient intelligence, that's the ancestral intelligence, maybe even the angelic intelligence. But we are the original AI. I am AI, to put it that way. And so what's happening is AI is now expressing in a greater dimension of our capacity in an external technology. So that's fine and that's beautiful. If you listen and study the greatest masters throughout history, they were doing all these things without internet, without podcasts, without cars. They were traveling without planes. They were bilocating, they were moving through things, they were healing, manifesting, you name it. And they didn't need all of these external technologies. And eventually, one day, either will we. But in the time being, it's fun and it's cool. And it's better to have something to extend and express your potential rather than to merely wait till you get it all in consciousness. But here's where the danger is. With every new technology, with every new crutch, with every new prosthetic, with every new brace, with every new external expression of our internal potential, there is the danger to forget where it came from. There's the danger to lose touch with the original capacity. And this is happening. A lot of young kids can't write anymore, handwrite. They don't even know what that is. And you might say, well, we don't need that anymore. Who cares? A lot of kids can't spell anymore. Well, who cares? The computer will do it for you. But if you keep tracking that, pretty soon kids and adults won't know how to tell a story anymore. They won't need to. Story is how we communicate and communicated from the dawn of time. And then pretty soon, we're just going to outsource our mind. And it'll feel like a relief at first. It'll feel like a game changer at first. I can put in Neuralink, plug into ChatGPT or whatever the name of it will be, and I'm Mr. Google. And I can speak in any language and hear in any language, and it's great. And then what happens when the grid goes down? What happens when the internet goes down? What happens when there's a solar flare? And of course, that may or may not happen, but it's a thought experiment. Because for a lot of people, if I dropped you down into the middle of a big city without GPS, you'd be kind of screwed, right? For a lot of people, if I just dropped you down in your city and said, you got to get home without GPS, they'd be calling mom and crying very soon. But they wouldn't even be able to call mom. If they didn't have the phone, they wouldn't know mom's number. So like we're already handicapped or disabled, and it's only going to get more so if we don't remember we're the OGAI. And we want to make sure that, and the way to progress, and I'm not anti-technology, but we want to have right now we have a high-tech, low-touch world. If we're going to have a much higher tech world, we need to have a much higher touch world. There's a reason why science fiction always depicts all of this futuristic technology, and humans are still the same jerks killing each other, just with bigger bombs and greater technology. So we have to take it upon ourselves to make our own evolution, our own growth of thinking and contemplating and deepening our humanity and deepening our touch and our connection and deepening our awareness of expansion and our infinite sovereign agency and all these things we're talking about. All this that's used to be like, oh, that's cool for those people over there that can afford to go to the workshops, or that's kind of cool, self-help, read the latest book. But this is going to become obligatory. If you don't know who you are and why you're alive and you're not all in to live it, you're going to be in big trouble. Because AI is going to, first of all, AI is not going to take your job initially. It's going to take, you're not going to be replaced initially by AI. You're going to first be replaced by the person who uses AI. And then AI is going to replace them, unless they build an AI to replace themselves and they make themselves irreplaceable. So there's a whole new value set that is seeking to emerge. This is an evolutionary trigger point, an evolutionary inflection point, where if we allow it, AI could activate the greatest evolution in human consciousness, in our humanity. Not that we become the Borg, but in our deeper superpowers in evolution than ever before. And if we don't grow and we fall asleep in the matrix, well, you know how that works out until Neo comes along.
Right. Yeah, I mean, amen. I really, definitely hoping that this becomes a catalyst for folks and a forcing function, I think, for folks to go back to like the original comment of know thyself. Derek.
Exactly. I like that, a forcing function. Yeah.
Yeah, you articulate it so well. And so a lot to think about. Derek, looking back on your journey and your like career in general, you've written so many books, you've explored so many topics in the world of consciousness. What has surprised you the most about human nature?
That's a great question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that. Boy, it's a good one. And I've certainly thought about it. Well, I would say a couple things. First of all, humans are infinitely interesting and cool, like way more than I think I ever imagined. So that's the first thing. And secondly, humans are way more stubborn when it comes to change than I ever imagined. It's really, really, really rare for humans to actually do the hard work and go on the heroine's journey that is required to really change and not just merely move the deck chairs around on the Titanic. And I spent most of my life and most of my career trying to help them do that. And I'm pretty good at it, but it's really, really challenging because there's so much inertia to stay the same. And so therefore humans all often need pain and crisis to finally change. And so those are a couple of things that I found to be the most surprising. The other thing I will say is, in terms of my own personal journey too, is I've done a lot of work on myself, for 25 plus years. You'd be hard pressed to find a person who has worked harder in terms of the deep inner work, the vulnerability work, the therapy, the spiritual practices, the meditations, the creative work, the entrepreneur, all the stuff, checking all the boxes. And the illusion that I had control if I just worked and did all the boxes and did all the right things, it would still turn out right. And that I even had any notion of what right is. That's been really, really broken down, like deeply, deeply humbled in my journey. So one of the most surprising things is that no matter how much we've learned or how much we know or think we know, we really, truly are blind. And I'm not saying that as a negative, like, that's so negative of you. You should affirm, we see, Derek. No, but it's like the blind men and the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that we're blind, and that the smartest, most brilliant person on the planet is blind, and that we're all blind, and we need to just get used to it. We don't have blind spots. We live in a blind spot, and we have little slivers of seeing. But when we come together as blind men and women, and we touch reality, and we share what we see, what we feel, what we think it is, together, all of our little slivers of reality that we see, although mostly blind, can allow us to see what is true in the middle. But we have to start by admitting we're blind. And then we can actually begin to see.
Amazing, amazing, powerful. Derek, I really, really enjoyed this conversation so much and found it incredibly inspirational. So
Thank you.
where can people find you? Are there any resources you can point folks to in order to learn more about you, your work, what's coming next?
Absolutely. I mean, the first place to go is lots of good stuff, information, free stuff. They can go to DerekRydall.com, and that's DerekRydall.com. And you can see the podcast on there. You can see a whole bunch of free trainings that some of the stuff I've talked about here, where they can just download them for free, dive in and start, implementing, because there's a lot that we talked about here, quite a lot. But I would just start there. I have a podcast, Emergence, and some other stuff that's coming out, depending on when and where you're listening to this. Just keep an eye on it. There's a new one coming out, new podcast. And just go to the site and you'll be able to find all kinds of goodies.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And we'll leave it in the show notes so that people can find it.
Great.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Derek. This was so lovely, and I really appreciate your time as well.
Thank you. It's been my honor and privilege, truly.
Oh. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learned about so much emergence from AI and consciousness and more with Derek Rydall. And you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again.